It is my privilege and honor to introduce you to Tom Stimulus.
Thank you very much for seeing me. Good morning, everybody. As Christine said, my name is Tom Stimulus, and I am the owner and managing director of True North Group. And today, as she said, we're going to talk about cybersecurity. And what I'd like to kind of start with is cybersecurity is now turned into the third topic that people don't like to talk about. The first one, of course, is you don't want to talk to a lawyer about a will, you don't want to talk to your financial planner about your budget, and you don't want to talk to your security guy about your cybersecurity in your company. And that's because a lot of it is people don't really understand it. And I think that's what I'd like to, the goal today for me is to get rid of some of the fear and the uncertainty that you may see on the news and the media, and kind of give you the facts, but also give you some tips and some tools so that you can handle this and take it back to your own businesses. So with that, why should you have gotten up at 7:30 this morning and come in and talk to me? What are my qualifications? I've been doing cybersecurity for a very long time. I spent 20 years in the United States Army, mostly as a counterintelligence agent doing military intelligence. The last few years, I moved over into cyber. And with that, left active duty and went into the corporate world. And I've been a consultant in one manner or another since 2000 when I left active duty. I've had the opportunity to work for a lot of large firms, working for PwC, KPMG, a company out of New York called Alvarez and Marsal, and also I spent about 10 years working for Verizon when they purchased our smaller company, which was CyberTrust. So I've done security management, I've managed people, I've done cybersecurity in all different types of industries, which is really good because you get to deal with all of the compliance requirements. But how did I end up here? I moved to Northern Virginia in 2006 in Reston and loved it. However, if you've been to Northern Virginia recently, you'll see that it's changed. It's grown dramatically. Reston moved from the planned community that I really loved to something that was a little more intense. And my girlfriend and I wanted to find something different. And she grew up out here, and we came out and found a property and moved out here. And that was last year. And when we moved out here, I left my firm. I've been tired of dealing with enterprises. They're hard to deal with. They believe they know everything. Yet, when you watch the news, they're still constantly getting hacked and breached. So I decided to start my own company. But when I did it with the intent of helping small and medium businesses. And the reason is the threat is the same whether you're a 10-person accounting firm or a 10,000 person banking or financial organization. The internet, we're all on the same internet. But though those larger organizations are basically driving a tractor trailer, we're kind of driving around in a Prius. And if we get into an accident, the damage is going to be much more severe than if we were driving in that tractor trailer. So that's why I wanted to focus on that, and fortunately I've had the opportunity to meet some wonderful people in this community, and as a result I'm here today. So hopefully this will be a great opportunity for us to share knowledge back and forth. So as I said, as much as you want to, you really can't ignore cybersecurity anymore. It's in the news every day. It impacts all of us, and though you hear about the larger breaches like Equifax and Marriott, what you don't hear about are the smaller companies in the Shenandoah Valley that are being hit with ransomware and that are being forced to pay ransoms to get their data back. That doesn't make the news, but it is occurring on a regular basis. Being a military guy, of course, I think everyone in the military has read Sun Tzu. If you have, it's a requirement for anybody in the Army. But if you haven't, there's a lot of great wisdom. And it doesn't all have to apply to war. It really, you can use it in business. And basically what this one piece of advice from Sun Tzu is that if you understand your position and you understand the enemy, you will always win. If you understand yourself and you don't understand the enemy, you're going to win about 50% of the time. But in the worst case, if you really don't know yourself and you don't know the enemy, all you're going to do is lose. And that's really important when you start thinking about your network, your data, your clients, and what's important to you. And as we already talked about, the enemy or the criminals that are riding on the internet are constantly evolving and they're constantly growing. So it's important to continually learn about what they're doing or rely on someone to help you do that. So who is the enemy? You'll see the term threat actors. I think that's just more for Hollywood. But there are certain categories that you need to be aware of. And of course, criminals. You'll hear the term hacker, crackers, criminals. You hear script kiddies. A lot of those terms, but the criminal intent is financial. They want to either steal your money or steal intellectual property or steal access, and it's purely a financial target. And those are the ones that most small businesses will be dealing with. In addition to that, though, you have insiders. And what an insider is someone that may work for you, someone that has a trusted relationship, that has access to your environment more so than maybe someone that you don't know. And insiders, their motivation is also financial. It could be revenge. We all know we're all underpaid. We're all underappreciated. We all work too much. Unfortunately, sometimes people take that into their own hands and they feel that they should be able to compensate themselves at your expense. A hacktivist is somebody who has a cause. And, you've seen them as well. Anonymous is a name that you may have heard in the past. They find something that they're not happy for, that they want to support, and they will use all their resources to go against, whether it be a country or a company. And then the last one is our nation states, and that's the United States, that's China, that's Russia. They're playing, let's just say, professional football, where they're going back and forth. They have unlimited resources, but their targets are not really going to be small and medium businesses, but it's something you need to be aware of. If you remember, a number of years ago, the Stuxnet virus was all over the news, and that was a nation state that went into Iran and took down their nuclear processing facilities. That's not something a script kiddie is going to be able to do. That's going to take millions of dollars in effort. And so that's the kind of stuff but I just wanted to kind of share with you, when you see these terms, to understand, what they mean and what they may mean to you. Here's where I really want to spend a few minutes. And there is a lot of misleading information. And there's a lot of, and it's not deliberate. It's because someone says something and then someone else takes that and puts it on social media, or the news media wants to get more clicks on their website or more views, because you know what, you can't always have a hurricane to make people watch the news. So you have to find other ways to get them to turn on the news. So a couple myths. Passwords. Passwords were the beginning. They are still what everybody does to access their data. Whether you're accessing your email or your computer, it's always a password. You will be surprised that passwords, though we've been using them for well over 20 years, there's a lot of people who just don't use complex passwords. There's always an annual update of the worst passwords that are found on the internet. And yes, password, lowercase, is always at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is another one that's always at the top. So just using a password is not always the best the best way to protect your data. There's two-factor, and a lot of us will use it. You probably use it today. You'll have a token on your phone, or you'll log in and they'll send you a 4-code password to your phone. That's a second method of dual-factor authentication. And then the last one, which is growing, some of you may have seen it, is biometrics. So really with passwords, it's something you know, something you have, like a cell phone or a token, and who you are, which would be either your retina scan or your fingerprint. There's a lot of ways, but really just keep in mind, if you're gonna have a password, try to make it complex, try to make it something that someone else isn't going to figure out, because it's probably the password that you use to log into your email and into your bank. And I'm not gonna judge whether that's what you do, but if you do, if you only use 1 or 2 passwords, make them as complex as possible. Small and medium businesses are not a target. They really don't care about me. They only care about Marriott or Equifax. What do I have? You'd be surprised at how much information you have. If you have a bank account, you have resources. If you have client information, if you're a medical facility, you have private health information. If you take credit cards, if you don't outsource it, you have all of that payment card information, which would be credit card numbers and CCVs. So as much as you think you may not be a target, you are. And here's the other thing to keep in mind, all right? If we know this, the hackers know that your protections may not be as strong as a larger company. So of course, they may want to target you. And if you think about a parking lot, all right? Criminals, I'm not going to say they're lazy, but they're opportunistic. They're not going to break a window in a parking garage because they're willing to bet off of practice that someone in that parking garage left their car unlocked. And that's the one they're going to look for. So they're opportunistic, and that's what they're going to do with small and medium businesses as well. Only certain industries are vulnerable. All industries are vulnerable. So whether you're medical, manufacturing, retail, insurance, you all have something of value. And though you may not think it's of great value to a hacker, they do. Because everything they get, they can sell to someone else who may want that information. Antivirus and malware is enough. Unfortunately, it isn't anymore. The virus creators and the malware creators are getting so complex that the viruses are morphing every time they move. So they infect you and then they send something else out. It actually morphs. So the antivirus that you have on your system may not detect it. Now, I'm not saying don't have antivirus because it's your first line of defense, but it's not always enough, and it's something to keep in mind. Threats come from the outside. We kind of talked on that already. You have to think inside as well as outside. So those manuals or those policies that you read every year that you're forced to read, there's a reason. It's because you have to understand. And as an owner, you need to make sure your employees understand what they can and can't do. And though everyone in here in this room today and anyone else that you talk to may understand that surfing porn at work is a bad thing, but there is always going to be that person that said, geez, I didn't know we couldn't do that. And if it's not in a policy or properly documented, you don't really have much to, yes, you can call them an idiot, but you may not be able to fire them. So it's important that you clearly identify what your employees can and cannot do on your network and on your systems. You've heard this about crime. Cybersecurity is the same thing. It's not just the police's responsibility. It's not just IT's responsibility. It is everybody's responsibility. IT supports the business. And as a result of that, it takes the employees and yourself to warn IT that you have this suspicious email. All right? IT can't prevent you from opening it, but you can. So it's really a team effort in making sure that everybody understands what their responsibilities are to support IT and to support the mission of your business. Wi-Fi password is secure. A Wi-Fi password is secure. No. All right. First of all, it's better than open at Starbucks. And I will tell you, if you use Starbucks or any open Wi-Fi, I understand if you have a data plan, but if you're not using some type of virtual private network, which is basically a way to set up an encrypted tunnel, I could sit at Starbucks with a certain device which you would never see. It's very tiny. It's called a pineapple, and I can actually see all of your traffic, all of your usernames, all of your passwords. It's because basically look at Wi-Fi as in this room, and we are all individuals at Starbucks, and the air is Wi-Fi. And I go to firstbank or fbvirginia.com, and you hear me. And then I say username, all right, T Stimulus, password, and then I give my password, and you all hear it. That's what Wi-Fi does, except it does it in a digital where you don't hear it, but it's very easy to retrieve because it's data that's transmitted through open space. So I'm not saying stop using it, I'm saying use it with education. Understand what you're using and make sure that you put in place what you need to so that you can conduct your own businesses. You'll know you are infected. Well, if you've watched the news, Equifax didn't know for 2 years that they were infected. Marriott didn't know for about 3 years that someone had broken into their network and had been their data. As a small business, it's very hard. They do a very good job of hiding themselves in your network. And there's a lot of things that are going on. There are a lot of times they'll infect your network and they'll just sit there and they won't do anything. They'll just park something there and they're like, you know what, I'll get back to this at some other time. Kind of like all the projects at my house. I'll start it and then I'll say, you know, I'll get back to that later on, and I move on to something else. Personal devices. All right, now we all live on our phone as much as we don't want to. It's definitely necessary. We are into instant gratification, and I don't mean that in a bad way. We have a question, we're at dinner, we're having a debate about a topic, and we pull up the phone. When I was younger, you had to wait to go to the library or go home and look up Encyclopedia Britannica to confirm that. And then you had to get on your phone and dial a rotary number to call and say, I told you I was right. So it was a little bit different. So we're accustomed to that. But we also download a lot of applications because we believe they are going to help us be more effective or time management. And there's a lot of information that we share as a result of that. Because no one, and to include myself, no one reads the end user license agreement, which is that EULA, where it says, you know, to use this, you're like, click, just give me the app, please. I'm looking for a restaurant. And you just agree. I'm not saying you go read them, but realize that you want to make sure that you use a password on your phone. A lot of people still don't use passwords. Face ID, you know, I'm still kind of open. Sometimes it's convenient, sometimes it's not. But you do want to protect your phone. I think most of us do, because the moment your phone is you can't find it for 10 minutes, everyone starts to freak out and everything stops until I can find my phone. And that's why I have an Apple Watch, so I can actually ping my phone and it tells me where it is. And then cybersecurity can be achieved. It can. It's a moving, ongoing, living process. A lot like your homes. All right, we do many things to protect our family at our homes, locks, doors, but it's a constant thing. Sometimes we add a camera. We understand what the threat is in our neighborhood. If cars are getting broken into, we heighten our security. The same thing goes. You have to kind of understand. Unfortunately, it's not one and done. So let's kind of talk about some facts, because I really feel it's important that knowledge is the most important defense that anyone can have when it comes to cybersecurity. And as Christine said, this is the stuff that you don't hear on the news. 2/3 of small and medium businesses have suffered a cyber attack in the last 12 months. All right. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but I know that small and medium businesses make up about 53% of all businesses in the United States. So we're talking well over a couple million businesses, and I apologize, I should have had that fact. But think about the fact that 2/3 of them, and that was last year, and unfortunately the forecast that basically said that if you weren't attacked in some manner, you were lucky, because unfortunately it's only going to get worse. And as Chris said, 60% of small businesses go out of business within 6 months of an attack. And the reason is because it's the financial impact. And we'll talk a little bit more on what those financial impacts are, because it's not just the $3,000 of ransomware that you may decide to spend or not. There are multiple things that, unfortunately, they don't really calculate when they're talking about it in the media. And lastly, we all still live on email as much as we don't like it. 92% of most of the breaches occurred because someone opened an infected email. So email awareness and understanding that is something that you can really do as a defensive. And what's nice about that is it really doesn't cost you anything. What's the outlook? As you can see here, the numbers are really disheartening. That ransomware is going to affect approximately a new organization every 14 seconds. That's not 14 minutes. It's not 14 hours. It's 14 seconds. 62% of the small businesses, which means I think we have, about 10, 12 people, 8 of you do not have a good cybersecurity strategy in place today. And what's a cybersecurity strategy? I'll tell you all about that. And then, which is the biggest one right here, 3 out of 4 small businesses, they just don't have sufficient personnel. We all know that. Now, I am a solopreneur, and I understand. I do everything. I do bookkeeping, I do marketing, I do sales, I do delivery, I do it all. So I completely understand, and I am a cybersecurity person. So I understand that how the challenges are. We're having a very difficult time just keeping the lights on. All right, we have our competitors. We have to do all of this stuff. And you go to Best Buy and you buy a computer and you turn it on, and then you load your applications on it and you start doing business, right? So we don't have the resources necessarily, but think about the same way that if you were building a house, if you built a house without a proper foundation, how long is that house going to stand? It's not going to stand for very long. So not everybody wants to put a foundation in because they really want to get their house up, but there's rules in place, and the rules are in place for a good reason, all right? Because if you build a house poorly, it could kill you, all right, if it falls down, or someone else. Well, if you look at it as your network as a home, then the same thing goes for you. If you don't build it correctly, it's not going to kill you, but it's going to kill your business, and it's going to kill your dream, and it's going to make you go get another job. And probably have to drive over the mountain back to Northern Virginia. And if that doesn't scare you enough to deal with cybersecurity, I don't think anything I say from the rest of this conversation is. And reputation. And here's the big thing that I use Solenbergers, and I hope they don't get mad at me, but Solenbergers has been in this community for a very long time. People shop at Solenbergers because they trust them, because they provide a good value. They're part of this community, and people trust them. When you go in and you ask them what you need for a project, and they give you the information, you take it because you know that person's been there for 20-something years and they've handled everything. And then you use your credit card, or you open up an account if you're a business. And then you find out that Solenbergers got hacked, and they have not been hacked, okay? All right, but what I'm saying is, in this area, what does that do to their reputation? It really damages something that they've spent, 80 years building can be ruined by, not knowing about something. It's not even they did something deliberately. They just didn't know. And then someone comes in and steals all that data, and then they're in the Winchester Star for all the wrong reasons. And then people start to say, well, I don't know if I can trust them anymore with my data. It happens. And it's not something that you want. And it happens to all of us, right? Me too. All right, if I give my clients the wrong information, I'm not going to be in business very long. So it's important that you spend a lot of time building your reputation. You work hard to build your reputation. You do things on time to provide that right information. Well, at the same time, you have to make sure that you're protecting your client's information. So there are things you can do. I know you don't really want to talk. People don't really want to talk about. They'd rather talk about sports or politics. I don't know why, but talk about what you're doing. Don't be afraid to share with your customers, some of the things that you're doing. That, let them know that their data is secure, that we take it seriously. We are doing all the things that we can do. Share it ask your colleagues. Business owners are competitors, but business owners also support each other. And you can see that through the chamber. You can see that what we're doing here today. Ask them what they're doing. Ask them what's working for them. Ask them what isn't working for them. And be open for them to ask you. Because if you do that, it saves a lot of time. Because it's no different than buying a car. If I want to buy a car, which I just did, I bought it from a dealer and a person that I knew and trusted. And when I asked him what I should look for, he told me what I should look for. And he told me even knowing that I may not buy something from him. And I think it works the same way in that. Now, if you're a dry cleaner and the other person's a lawyer, no, you're really not going to talk about what are the best dry cleaning solutions. But you do have some commonality that you can definitely share with each other. And I think these are great forums for that. And also, if you're a chamber event, don't look at it as something that you really shouldn't talk about. Technology is continually advancing. And you're getting, I know all of you get calls on a regular basis from a cold caller telling you about this new technology that's going to make your business better. You have custom contacts or all of those different things. And they want you to invest in all of this technology. Just remember, if you've ever bought a new vehicle, we'll use that example, the more technology in a new vehicle, the more things break. All right, so you need to be aware that as the technology gets better, the vulnerabilities are also going to increase because we become more and more reliant on it. And lastly, with the strategy, communicate it. Don't keep it to yourself. You have to share it with your employees. And you got to make sure that they understand it. All right? Silence, though we joke that silence is understanding, it's not always understanding with an employee. So, safe intellectual property, you've got a couple things that we want to think here. It's fundamental, right? And there are expectations for your clients. They expect that when I give you my information, I expect that it's going to be secure. And in the old days, it was fine. You write my name on a card, you put it in a safe, and that's where it would remain. And we had that. Now it's much more challenging. It's doable, but it's just something you need to understand. And here's the thing that I really want to share with you. Cybersecurity is not a technology risk. And that's something that a lot of people think. That's a technology. It's a technology can solve it. Well, look at cybersecurity as a chronic disease. And there are things that you can do with a chronic disease that treat a symptom, whatever that may be, but not the cause. Cybersecurity is an operational risk. And everyone here who runs a business understands operational risk. And that ties to, should I lease this new facility? Should I buy that new piece of equipment? Should I hire that new employee? That's all operational risk. Because every time you make a decision, there's a certain level of risk that you absorb or you take on in your company. Same thing with cybersecurity. Don't look at it as a technology because it affects your success. And technology can be something that will be a business enabler for you, but it can also be a detriment if it's not properly managed. So just keep about the fact that it is an operational risk. And as a leader, you have a responsibility not only to yourself, but your business, but to your employees. And as I said, I'm a solopreneur, right? I only have to be responsible for myself. However, the moment I make a decision to hire an employee, everything changes. Because now I am now responsible for that individual and that individual's welfare and their lifestyle. And then their children or their wife or spouse is also dependent upon me to make decisions. So when you decide to do something or not to do something, don't look at it as a cost. Look at it as an investment, not only in your business, but in your employees and in your growth. Because that's another thing a lot of people do. They look at it as a cost. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So what can, and I really want to talk about, because everything gloom and doom, I really want to tell you what you can do, right? And these are some of the things that you can do. If you don't have a firewall and you are connected to the internet, you have to have a firewall, right? That's like having a house with a front door opening, but no front door or a lock. Now, I don't know about you, but I would never buy a house that didn't have a front door. I just wouldn't. I want to determine who is allowed to enter into my home. That's the same thing that you want to do with a firewall. They're inexpensive, and they're very inexpensive in the grand scheme of things. You can set them up yourself. I don't recommend it. I highly recommend that you get with your IT provider. If you don't have an IT provider, I'll tell you there are probably 10 in the Winchester area. So not only are you getting good advice, but you're also working with someone in the community. So keep that in mind as well. Encrypt your data. This you can do for free. Right? Every Windows PC and every Mac has the ability to encrypt your hard drives for free. It's part of the operating system. In Windows, it's called BitLocker, and in Apple, it's called File Vault. And like I said, my contact information, I'm more than happy to show you how to do it. There's also videos all over YouTube. If you can't find something, or you just go to YouTube. It's someone else has already put something on YouTube. Make sure you watch at least 3 videos to make sure that the first video is actually telling you the right things to do. So I always try to, it's just like a quote. You always get 3 quotes. I always watch 3 videos to make sure that they're all the same. But that's something you should do, because here's why. And even large companies do this, that you tell people, don't leave your laptop in your back seat. All right? Don't leave it in a visible location. But someone runs up to Starbucks, they go in, they're going to get a coffee, someone smash and grabs, and they grab it. And depending on your industry, that could be significantly painful. If you are in a regulated industry, just say a medical doctor, and you have 1,000 patients, and you have all of their patient data on there, that is a HIPAA violation, and that's going to be painful. But if your hard drive is encrypted, now it's just the loss of a device. It's a $1,000 device. It's not your reputation. It's not reporting it to the authorities. It's not having the federal government come down on top of you. It's none of that. It's because the encryption basically turns all of that data into zeros and ones. And it's, like I said, it doesn't impact your ability to do your job. It doesn't slow your devices down. It's just another security. So look at it again as having a house with windows, and the encryption are the blinds, right? They can't see inside the house. So therefore, so look at it that way. Backing up your data. This is probably, I should put this at the top, but the reason I didn't is because I think you want to keep people out of your house. Backing up your data is probably the most important thing that a small business can do today because of the environment. And what I mean by that is ransomware, right, is when someone gets into your network and they encrypt all of your data with their encryption, and then they extort money out of you to say, you have to pay us $10,000 in order to get the key to unencrypt your data, or we're just going to delete it. Well, if you back up your data, and there is a little caveat that it's got to be properly segmented, right, which is your IT people can help you with that. But if you back up your data, I'll be perfectly blunt, you can say thank you very much, hang up the phone, call your IT person, and not have to pay it, because they will restore from that backup all of the data that they encrypted, and you don't have to pay the ransomware. That's the stuff that you don't hear about on the news. Or you hear it lightly and they don't really provide you enough information, but backing up your data is the most important thing that you can do to prevent, and if you think about it, that's the number one threat to small businesses is ransomware today. Antivirus, if you don't have an antivirus, there's free antivirus. Okay, you don't have to pay for antivirus. You can, because there are benefits to paying for it. There's the updates, but a lot of these companies like Norton and McAfee will also sell a family plan where you can do all of them, but they'll also give you a VPN as part of it, which talks about some of the other things that we talked about. So you just have to determine, and once again, ask your neighbor. Ask a colleague, what are they using for antivirus? What do they like? What do they don't like? And inventory your assets. And here's another one that's really interesting. If you don't know what you have, how can you protect it? And again, I'm going to use the home. All right. If you live in your house, and I'm just, no one needs to raise their hands, but I just want you to kind of raise your hands in your mind here. For everyone who owns a home, can you tell right now how many windows you have? And how many doors you have? And most of you are just going to raise your eyes and you're going to start counting. But the fact of the matter is if you believe you have 25 windows and you have 27, because you don't even know about those two, because you just never knew they were there, they're in an attic or whatever, and they're not secure. And so you think you're doing a great job. And you are for what you know. So what you don't know, you don't know. So inventory what your assets are, how many computers you have, and it's, for some of us it's like, well, I only have 3 computers. Well, that's fine, but as you grow, that's going to change. But also, where is your data sitting? All right? Is it in the cloud? Is it on a thumb drive? Is it on an old laptop that's sitting in the corner that you're probably just trying to figure out how you're going to throw it away? Have you done that? You know, that data is all valuable. So that as long as you know where your data is and know what assets you have, you can actually properly protect them. Train your employees on cybersecurity principles.
Can I have a question?
Of course.
How we can protect our cell phone or iPad?
For the cell phone and the iPads, you can also encrypt those. You can encrypt your phones and your iPads. But for most, it's your password is the big way to keep people off of your iPad. And then I don't keep any data on my iPad. I access it through my cloud or through my own personal cloud data. I don't keep anything. So if I lose my iPad, I just lose the iPad. And then they can't get it. And then what's really nice is you can actually wipe your iPads remotely. Apple provides those services where you set it up and the moment it turns on, it wipes it. As long as it connects it to the internet, which they're always going to do. If someone steals it, they're going to try to wipe it, or they're going to try to get it. As soon as it's on, it's connected to the internet, Apple will actually, you can set it up to wipe it, to wipe all of your drives on your phones and your iPads. Training employees. I hate the term security awareness, right? Once a year, they hand you a paper and they say, read this. And then they expect you to completely understand security principles. So I ask you, if you go to the gym once a year, are you fit? If you eat a salad once a year, are you healthy? Well, the answers to that are no and no. So why would you expect that your employees are going to understand security by reading a pamphlet once a year? You have to do training. And then you have to repeat it, okay? So training has to be 4 things. It has to be interesting. It has to be repeated. You have to kind of role play, and accountability. You have to have accountability, or training is never going to succeed. So when you train your employees, make them accountable and make them understand, but do it on a regular basis. You can have games. You can have, hey, and there are tools out there that you can send phishing, and you can do a wall of shame if you want, like who clicked on this, and trust me, if you do it enough, and I'm not saying if you gamify it and make it fun for your employees, they're going to make it a competition amongst themselves to not click on that phishing email. So it puts it as part of your culture. Email security, we talked about that as part of awareness, but also if you have email gateways, there are a lot of things that your IT people can implement for you. Vulnerability scanning and patching systems, all right? Patching systems is like your car, all right? Your computer is like your car. It works effectively and optimally when you take care of it. So patching in the eyes of a car is checking your oil, changing your air filters, filling your tires up. So when you run this in your vulnerability system, a vulnerability assessment or scanning is you walking around your car, making sure all your lights work and that your oil is up to speed and your air is where it's supposed to be. All right? That's not something you have to do. You really want to kind of rely on someone else, but you have to make sure that the computers are always up to date as much as possible. Microsoft does this for free. You can download it, but and you can schedule it, so you don't have to do that. Virtual private network as necessary. If you do connect from someplace other than your office or your home, you probably want to have a VPN to protect that data that's traversing over the internet. And lastly, third parties. if you outsource anything, you have to make sure you understand that they're protecting your data in the same manner that you protect your data. See, what a lot of people don't realize is that Target wasn't the organization that got hacked. Target's third-party vendor or their environmental company got hacked, and then the criminals came in through the environmental company's network to get into Target. And then, of course, they took the small person down, and then they got into the large organization is where they really wreaked all that havoc. So it's it's a trust issue. If you have a cleaning person that comes to your house, you vet that cleaning person, especially if you let them come in when you're not home. If you have a dog walker, I have 2 dogs, all right? I have someone come and check on my dogs. That person went through a lot of vetting. Our children, we don't just leave our children with anybody. Maybe sometimes we would like to, but we don't, all right? Because we have to have that trust. Your vendors are the same way. You need to hold them accountable that they're doing the right things with the information that you're sharing with them. And it's something that we don't really think about because it's all digital. It's not face-to-face like it used to be. So, I used this the other day with my group. Which network will you have? When you think about the 3 little pigs, all right? I try to keep this, like I said, I don't want cybersecurity to be something that you can't relate to. All right? We all know the story. There's a straw network, there's a wooden network, and there's a brick network. And we all know what happened to the 2 little pigs that had the straw house and the wooden house. But the thing is to keep in mind is that it's achievable. It's not something that you have to be a multi-million-dollar company to possess. And if you've ever worked in a multi-million-dollar company, you understand there's a lot of bureaucracy that actually hinders their ability to be secure. So you're actually at an advantage because not only are you the individual that researches it, but you're the decision maker. There's not a lot of layers for you to go through to make those decisions to protect your network. So we want to make sure that we assess our risk and our weaknesses. We want to know what our assets are, and you want to know what the value is. Document. And the stuff that I've shared with you today is kind of a strategy. You know, I want to buy a firewall. I want to encrypt my systems. I want to do this. That's a strategy. And then every year I'm going to do this. There you go. We're done. Did it on a piece of paper. Back up your critical information. And that's something that I don't think I can stress enough. If you really want to be ahead of the curve, you want to make sure you're backing up. Training your employees, you're already training them anyway because it is much less expensive to keep an employee than it is to hire an employee. And the other thing is we're at 0% unemployment for all intents and purposes. My own personal opinion is people who want to work are working. All right? Those that aren't have a reason why they don't want to work. So if you lose an employer, if an employee changes, it's going to be challenging in some areas to get a replacement, but then all of the money that you're going to spend to retrain that individual and all of the time that you're going to give up while that individual is training is going to impact across the board. And then continuity. One of the biggest things that you have to realize is that the ransom is not the biggest problem. It's the downtime. Are you down for an hour? Or 8 hours, or a week? And ask yourself, that's part of your strategy. You have to ask yourself, how long can I be down before it impacts me financially? You know, am I going to pay my employees if I can't have them do anything? So continuity is, what am I going to do? And it's no different, unfortunately State Farm, you can't call them and say, yeah, they'll tell you you're covered if you have insurance, but they're not going to tell you what you need to spend it on to keep your business running. That's not what they do. They just write you a check and then they expect you to know what to do. So having some type of a plan is something, and once again, it can be a piece of paper, you know? It doesn't have to be this extensive plan. It really depends on the size of your company and what type of impact it's going to have for you. So these are some resources that are all free, provided, a lot of them provided by the federal government. I'll have all of this. You guys will have this, this presentation, so you don't need to write it down. But there's a small business association. You'd be surprised. I know probably many of you looked at it when you first started and probably haven't looked at it since. But there's a wealth of information there on cybersecurity as well, because it impacts them. NIST, which is the National Institute of Science and Technology, they were chartered by the federal government to create a plan for small businesses, and it was released last year. It's very good, and it provides you with the basics. You have to read it, you have to understand it necessarily, but it's there. There's also a cyber resilience review. It's a lot what Chris said. I would start with Chris's, but this is a document that you fill out, you answer the questions, and it tells you what they believe your status is. And then you can take that information. It's unbiased. It's not, you know, I'm a consultant. It's not me coming in saying, hey, you're all a mess. It's an unbiased person telling you you're a mess, and then reaching out to someone to help you, you know, fix it. And then social media. It's as much as, you know, don't look at Facebook as social media, all right? Look at the other things. Social media can be a tremendous benefit. It's something that, if properly used, can blow your business up in a positive way. But there's a lot of risks in using social media. This gives you some of those things on vandalism, and, you know, of course, you know, if you notice, anytime somebody posts something bad and then they regret it, they tell you that their account was hacked. So, you know, but that's not always true. But they do hack. But, you know, because a lot of people will use the same passwords to get into their social media that they'll use to get into their bank. So you just got to keep track of that. And I'm going to leave you with this. All right? You never have to worry about the bears as long as you can outrun your friend. And if you think about that, if you do just the basics, then you're going to raise yourself higher than the individuals that don't. And I don't wish that upon anybody, but when I work with my clients or deal with my friends or colleagues, my goal is to help them secure their environment. And it's kind of like the whole horse to water thing. If you put in these simple recommendations that I provide, you will basically outrun your friend. Forever, I can't say, but you'll outrun your friend for now while you're building that up. So with that, we have a few minutes. I would love to, if you have anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy.
Tom, I think you did a fantastic job. One question I might have had was maybe discuss, if you don't mind, a couple of products that you use, and maybe how cyber criminals utilize what the masses use, as you know, basically Windows, Mac, or anything like that, or antivirus software, things like that. I was kind of curious as to what products and why you might use those products.
Okay. So the first thing is, there's a couple things. Let's just go with a new computer, right? Because if you have an older computer, there's different steps that you need to take. But you have a new computer, the first thing I do is I encrypt the hard drive. Because it's, like I said, it comes with that. I do use the cloud a lot. But for backup purposes, and I use a Mac, as you can see, so I back up in 3 different places because I believe in redundancy. First thing is I back up to Time Machine, which is on a drive that on a spare drive that's parked next to my computer on my desk, and that's wonderful. That's the first step. If you're doing that, continue to do it. But keep in mind, if your house burns down, guess what? You're not going to grab your laptop and your hard drive. You're going to grab your family, and then all that data is gone. So as much as that is a good idea, it's not the only idea. I also back up to the cloud. I have my Apple account where I back up my data to the cloud. And then thirdly, I have a product that I use. It's called iDrive. Some of you might use Carbonite. And that backs up your hard drive over the internet to a secure facility as well. So I have 3 different ones. Now, the Carbonite and the iDrive, that's going to take a little time because that's truly a backup and you actually have to restore. Time Machine's much quicker. You can restore a file fairly quickly. In the cloud is basically just a mirror of your environment. So if you have that redundancy, you'll always have your data backed up, right? Antivirus, there's AVG, there's Norton, there's McAfee. It's really a personal preference, but there are things that I would recommend, okay? If you are a member of anything, okay? I don't care if it's the Chamber, the VA, VFW, American Legion, whatever it is, go to their sites. Every single one of them, AAA, they all have discounts with someone. So check there first. If you're a student taking college classes, student discounts are awesome. I'm still taking classes at the University of Maryland, so I get amazing discounts through the University of Maryland to purchase software and stuff like that. So don't just go on their site and buy it. Do a little research to see what you have. Your credit cards have memberships and create Costco. All right, I bought my laptop from Costco because from a maintenance perspective, if you buy something from Costco, it's 2 years if anything goes wrong. All right, now that's not if you drop it or throw it out the window. If it fails,
That's awesome, though. That's
2 years, no questions asked. If you buy it with their credit card, if you have that credit card, it's now 4 years. So you got to look at that too. Maintenance. We don't want to. You look at the Apple maintenance plans. Sometimes they think it's expensive. The first time you fix an Apple it's like a BMW, all right? If you've ever owned a BMW, they're wonderful. They don't break, but when they break, you know they break, all right? Because it costs thousands of dollars to fix them. So you have your maintenance plans. For VPNs, I use. There are a bunch of them out there. Forgive me. I just forgot the name of the one I use, but I use one. It's a small company out of Reston, and that's why I used them when I was living there. So the VPN, wherever I'm traveling, it allows me to connect to my computers. It allows me to sit at Starbucks comfortably and not worry about it, or here, or whatever. Excuse me? Virtual private network. It's a VPN. You'll see the term VPN used all the time. Most companies already use them. I think it's important that you do because it is that encrypted tunnel that only you see the data and the traffic. Was there another application?
No, I was, so basically all with the antivirus software, they're universal, the language and the actual threats that are being put out are spread amongst one another, so it's kind of personal preference thing as far as using an antivirus program. And then VPN, as I understand, it sends your traffic, your IP address, everything, it sends it around all over the world, things like that. Is that how that works?
No, a VPN is a point-to-point connection. So what it is there's a server that is hosted by that company, and you connect to that server, encrypted, and then that server sends out your requests. So the traffic over the internet is not being cast out. So it's a private tunnel, basically. So the old days when you had a string and 2 cans, that's basically what a VPN is. You're talking to the can and it goes to the other. But it's encrypted. Yes, it's all encrypted. The other thing is both Microsoft and Apple have firewalls on their laptops. It's just turn it on, and you can configure it as strict as you want. Or you can just use their standard. They have a default setup that I would highly recommend just going with. The other thing, and it's a little challenging, would be your routers at your home or your business. If you're using an old like a Linksys router let's put it this way, if you're running your business, I would recommend you upgrade your router. Now they have router firewalls. I would recommend you spend a few $100s, which would get you a much faster router. It would most likely get you a VPN in that router, and it'll probably provide you with antivirus as part of the package, and it provides you with a firewall.
Saves you money.
It saves you money, yes. But remember, it's the quality, all right? You can haul dirt you know, with a station wagon, or you can haul dirt with a pickup truck, all right? But the pickup truck's probably gonna be more effective. And I think you need to look at the same way with technology. If it's $69 at Best Buy, do you really want to be running a $1 million company on a $69 router? You know, I wouldn't. But those are the things that you just want to look at. Any other questions?